Hi, welcome to this episode of the Broke Girl Society podcast. I'm your host, Christina. And in this episode, we talk with Rick Benson, who is the founder of Algamus Treatment Centers in Prescott, Arizona. It's a residential treatment center, and it's one of the very few in the United States that is gambling specific. So I just thought it'd be great for him to come on, kind of tell us about, how it started and his story and just what it's like to be in a residential treatment program. Now, I just want to make a quick note. I am not affiliated with Algamus. This is not a paid advertisement, and I have not gone through the program myself. I just thought it would be great for you guys to hear about the program and kind of why it might be important to step away from our lives for a short period and kind of reset in a residential treatment environment. So thanks for listening in, and let's talk to Rick. Hey, Rick, do you want to share your story and kind of how the program started?
Thank you. Nice to be with you. So I'm a recovering gambler. I haven't gambled in more than 30 years. I was started as a horse player, became a very heavy sports player, became what I thought was a professional blackjack player, moved to Vegas in a delusion that I was a professional gambler. Wasn't, obviously, was a gambling addict. My life became a train wreck. And as I say, I've been in recovery now for a number of years. When I first came to looking for help, there was no residential treatment available outside of the Veterans Administration, and I'm not a veteran. So I was doing the next best thing. I had a wonderful therapist who literally had me in his office Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, doing group sessions and individual sessions, going to Gamblers Anonymous or filling in with Alcoholics Anonymous meetings most evenings of the week. And that was what I finally needed to do to turn my life around. Algamus started in 1992 in Florida. We're really sort of a halfway house that morphed into a therapeutic community, that morphed into a residential treatment center. We about 5 years later opened a second program in South Carolina. About in 2007, I was approached by a psychologist who was also an internationally certified gambling counselor in Arizona, who said we really need a program like Algamus in Arizona. I moved the South Carolina program to Arizona. So since 2007, we've been exclusively in Prescott, Arizona, with a 12-bed program. We do accept most major medical insurance. We ask people to make a 1-month commitment to treatment, but we're not 30 days. Everybody goes home now. Some people need 5 weeks or 6 weeks. Usually good insurance will pay for up to 6 weeks. And I'm very grateful to be able to do the service work that I've been doing for all of these years, and hopefully to have impacted positively the recovery process of a lot of gamblers along the way.
I think that's great. I've seen, I heard through Algamus, about Algamus through my social media work, but after I became familiar with you, I have run into several people here just locally around me that have actually gone through your program and had a really great experience. And a lot of those were women. So that kind of leads me to my next train of thought on the rise of problem gambling in women. I myself am a problem gambler of 15 years. I am in active recovery. So this is a big passion for me, and I really want to try and just get information out there to women to help them find their start in recovery. So have you seen a big rise in problem gambling in women?
We've seen a very significant rise in problem and disordered gambling in women, particularly in those states or regions where we see a lot of machine gambling. You know, if we take the gambling addiction and we subdivide it into two subsets, we have what we refer to as action or skill gamblers. These are people who gamble on games on venues that require decision making. Sports gambling, craps, blackjack, poker would be examples. Then the other subset are what we refer to as luck or escape gamblers. While there may be some slight decision making involved, these are often machine gamblers, slot players, video lottery terminal players, lottery players, scratch off players, etc. Now, not to over characterize, you will find some women who are action skill gamblers. You will find more women who are escape luck gamblers. You will find some men who are escape luck gamblers. You will find more men who are action skill gamblers. So for the escape luck gambler, one of the things that happens, particularly as impacted by slot machines and video lottery terminals, is Rob Hunter, who was a good friend, a wonderful psychologist out of Las Vegas, passed on a couple of years ago. He used to refer to it as crack gambling. Development of the addiction is much more rapid for machine gamblers than it is on the total other side than the traditional horses only player, gambler, who may take 10 to 15 years to run through the winning phase, the losing phase, finally into the chasing desperation phase of the addiction where he's ready to seek help. You'll see that same progression sometimes in 4 to 6 months, certainly in 6 months to a year, with female gamblers, who we often see are what I refer to as late onset empty nest. Most of the gamblers that we see are 50 plus. That's not all, but most of the female gamblers we see are 50 plus. That's not most, but not all. Most of the male gamblers that we see are in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah, and that kind of concurs with the numbers that I see in my online communities and in my local meetings. I would say most of them are probably 50, but I'm seeing quite a few that are probably mid 30s, that still have young kids at home and kind of clear into the 40s. So I'll be 43 next month. So mine started, when I was about 28. And then it wasn't all compulsively, of course, for the last 15 years, probably the last 6 to 7, it was compulsively and damaging. So I'm seeing so many women in these groups, but I'm not seeing as many coming to like any local meetings or anything like that. And I'm really wondering why there's such a stigma to compulsive gambling. Why do you think that women are scared to seek the help that they need?
Well, I think there are a couple of reasons. A very high percentage, if I had to anecdotally put a number on it, I'd say that 90% of the female gamblers that we see have unresolved trauma, some of which dates all the way back to childhood. And I think that there's not a real understanding that the gambling is being used as medication for that trauma. So I think that's a part of it. I also think that there are still areas in the country where Gamblers Anonymous is male dominated and perhaps even in some instances, no disrespect intended, chauvinistic. I remember at my, it was my 10th, 15th, 30th meeting. This is early in 1985 in Chicago. There were no women there. And the first woman walked in and she was a bingo player. And I was internally, certainly not externally, but I was internally disparaging. My thought process was, oh, are you kidding me? I've lost more in 2 hours than this woman has lost in a lifetime. Obviously, over the years, I realized how wrong that type of thinking is. I realized that whether you're sitting in front of a video poker machine for 24 consecutive hours, or whether you're sitting at a blackjack table, doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter whether you drink vodka or you drink beer. If you're an alcoholic, you're an alcoholic.
Very well said.
So the venue doesn't matter. And as a matter of fact, what I absolutely know today is that people who are machine gamblers are more quickly addicted and sometimes even more deeply addicted than other gamblers.
Yeah, and that was definitely me. I was addicted to the slots. It's all I ever played. And before I started my journey of recovery and seeking help, I didn't realize how many different outlets of gambling there were, because I would see the card tables at the casino, but I never really gave much thought to it. And so I was really surprised. I mean, all the way down to like pull tabs. I didn't even know what pull tabs were. I didn't know that people could actually be addicted to scratch off tickets, or buying those lottery tickets. And some of those have turned into really, really big financial issues for women. And so it was really kind of enlightening to kind of see, not enlightening, but to see the broader scope of gambling, because I didn't know anything other than what I was personally addicted to. So it really opened my eyes.
Let's focus even a little bit further on this whole aspect of the female gambling. We sometimes refer to these 50 plus female gamblers as late onset empty nest. They are divorced, they're widowed, or they're just empty nested. The children are finally grown and out on their own. Now, the casino represents a safe social environment, much safer than a bar would, much safer than a nightclub would. Now they go to the casino, they start playing the lottery machine, and to some extent they, quote, fall in love with the machine, unquote. But they also have the social contact of mostly women, of other women who are gambling at adjacent machines. And they feel very socially comfortable in that environment, perhaps for the first time in a long time. They haven't really been out socializing in their lives during the child rearing years, if you will, during the employment years while the husband was still alive. Okay, and now the casino is not only supporting that, but I split time between Florida and the treatment center in Arizona, and I don't fault the casinos for doing what they do. I'm not an anti-casino person. I can tell you that here in Florida, the casinos, the Native American casinos here in Florida, bring the small shuttle buses to the senior citizen center. They pick the gamblers up and take them to the casino, and it's a recreational activity that the senior citizen center loves, because they don't have to do something recreational on premises as the administration. And the gamblers, many of whom are female, are doing that as a group. They're all piling onto the minibus together.
Yeah, absolutely. I would see them when I was in my active days. I would see them coming in droves, because where I'm at, I'm in Oklahoma, and so we are second in the nation to the amount of slot machines. We are behind Nevada, and so yeah, I see that all the time. I see them sending the shuttles. Plus all the casinos around here, they're not small little venues. We have huge hotel ones. In the city that I live in, there's 3 that surround me within a 20-30 minute drive that have full, huge hotels, golf courses, these big, elaborate entertainment type places. So I can absolutely see where women, because I never didn't feel safe going. It was actually kind of my, something I could do, because I didn't drink. So it was something I could do to kind of unwind for my day. And it was always my excuse of, oh, I need to go unwind. And then I started just chasing the cycle, and then I was needing to unwind from the problems that gambling created. So, once I finally was able to get outside of that wheel and see, how everything was progressing, then I was able to get a better hold on it. So I do see quite a few women in my online groups that are kind of at the childbearing years, or have children at home, and they are going and they're spending all their paychecks, and they're completely devastating their lives, and they're probably I would say late 20s, early 30s. So I think it's something that's starting younger, especially as casinos and gaming and all that grows. How do you foresee trying to tackle or stay on top of gambling
Well,
problems?
I think it's a matter of education, and I think it's a matter of doing some prevention work, certainly, but also getting the information out there. Any addicted gambler who has good enough insurance and/or self-pay capability and the ability to carve at least a month out of their schedule to go to treatment, how can a person not benefit by stepping out of their story for a month? Stepping away from the triggers in their home environment, whether it's the small kids that you just referred to at home, whether it's the semi-fractured relationship with the husband or the significant other, whether it's having lost the job, whether it's whatever. Um, Stepping out of the story and going to treatment for a month is a tremendous jumpstart to the recovery process that I think most gamblers, if they are disordered gamblers, and I'm making a distinction here between disordered gamblers and problem gamblers. People who only gamble problematically and have not developed disordered or addictive gambling, I'm not necessarily suggesting that they need to be at a residential treatment center. I think that there's some other indications, what I call soft signals, that a person needs residential treatment. How long has the gambling addiction been going on is one. That in and of itself doesn't necessarily qualify. But if in your instance, if you've been gambling addictively for more than a decade, you probably will, because of all of the ancillary consequences that have accrued, you probably will really benefit from residential treatment. Also, what are the specific triggers back home? What are the comorbid conditions, the mental health issues that are corresponding? And again, a very high percentage of the women that we see, they have this unresolved trauma, and until that trauma at least starts to be resolved in the residential treatment process, and the resolution continues in outpatient therapy post-treatment, and we're providing that referral, by the way, the chances of them staying stopped from the gambling are significantly less.
Yeah, that I see that I can see where getting a jump start on that would be a tremendous help. And it's probably something that I wish that I'd maybe done, and it might be something I do in the future. Now, what would you say to the woman who's struggling with addiction, who's driving down the road listening to this, but doesn't feel like she can get away from her life long enough for whatever reason, kids, job? What would you say to her that would put her on the track to getting the help that she needs?
First, I would ask the following question. I'd come at it from the drug perspective, of course, money being the drug in the gambling addiction. How much money are you losing every month? And how much money are you earning every month at your job? If you're losing more every month than you're earning at your job, you're working for the casino. So you don't really need to be working, because every penny plus some that you're taking home from your job, you're putting into a machine or losing across a blackjack table or whatever. Okay? So this idea that I can't leave home because the bills won't get paid, it's another cognitive distortion. Because the bills aren't going to get paid anyway. I think they are, because I think I'm going to catch the win. We all know that. You and I know that number.
Absolutely.
If I catch a win, I'll bail out of this. Okay, but it rarely happens. So that's one issue. The other issue is, what's the quality of the time that I'm spending with my family, including my children? If I take the time to do a residential treatment program, I can almost be assured that the quality of life back home will be very significantly better. Can't guarantee that the relationship, which is now in the middle of a legal separation, will rectify. But I can guarantee that it won't rectify if you continue to gamble.
Absolutely. And it would also probably make your situation worse,
Exactly.
because eventually you run out of options for the money you need to gamble. And then you start making even worse choices, and it leads down to a really dark road. So that's a good point. And then also something that I really think about too is, over the years, when I thought of an addict or addiction, I always thought of drugs and alcohol, because that's just, I didn't really grow up around anybody with an addiction aside from smoking. But I never compared myself to an addict. I never just the distinction was just too far off for me. And then it was after I started treatment and started my recovery that I came to terms with what an addict really is. And, now I identify, of course, as a compulsive gambling addict. So I think a lot of women have a hard time identifying themselves as somebody that's an addict or somebody that has a problem. And I feel like maybe that's why they have a hard time stepping forward and talking about it, because it makes it true. It makes it real. And, but where I was going with that is gambling is growing in so many different ways, between online gambling now. A lot of states do that. So how do we get ahead of this? How do we help the younger generation see what's going on?
No, I think the prevention effort, particularly for the youth, is going to become more and more important. There's no question about that. At the same time, I get calls all the time saying exactly what you've already said. I can't get away. And or the one that I'm hearing pretty recently now is, I can't interrupt my school year at the university.
Mm-hmm.
I have to wait until the school year ends. So what I say to those people is, I say, okay, we'll do it sort of your way. You go to Gamblers Anonymous meetings, or you said you would go to outpatient counseling. You go to outpatient counseling and you supplement that with Gamblers Anonymous meetings. And I strongly suggest that you make a commitment to yourself, not to me, not to your parents, not to your wife or husband. I want you to make a commitment to yourself that you're going to do this outpatient and you're going to do this Gamblers Anonymous. And if you make one more bet, you're going to call me. And we're going to talk about residential treatment.
That sounds like a great plan.
And some do it, and obviously some don't.
Right.
Also, people have a fear of the unknown. I don't want to say it's more so with women than with men, but what kind of a place am I going to in Prescott, Arizona? Are they going to lock me up? I get that question all the time. Are you a lockdown facility? No, there's no gate around the place. There's no fence around the place, and there's no lock on the front door. But we're going to ask you not to wander off on your own, because one of the other things that I'm absolutely adamant about, and I know, I won't name any names, but I know other treatment centers who do this 180 degrees different than we do, is if you come to our treatment program, when you get there, as soon as you have informed your family that you have arrived safely, and that has been confirmed because the intake person also talked to the family member, now you're relinquishing your cell phone. You don't get to carry your casino in your pocket in my treatment center. And I don't get how other treatment centers let people carry their cell phones. And particularly the younger gamblers, some of them are just as addicted to the darn phone as they are to the gambling.
I would agree with that.
They're very addicted to their phone. But no, you can't bring anything with an internet connection. No laptop, no iPad, no tablet, for the same reason. Because we really want you to step out of your story. And we want to provide a kind of loving, a serene environment, a lovely mountain lodge. We want to provide an environment that in nature supports the early recovery process.
Yeah, that actually sounds really nice to be able to just kind of disconnect, get away from the things in our lives that are triggering this so that we can actually get a good start on healing and, getting a better idea of what life would be like without these triggers and this chaos, that has made our lives unmanageable due to this. So that actually sounds very, very nice. Now the thing is with getting the word out there that there are treatment centers like you. Why is that something that we don't see? Why do we not see where to get help? Why is it until it takes
we have
really
pretty
digging?
Prominent position with the number of search engines on the internet. But what we don't do is we don't go around hanging brochures in casinos. Partially because the casinos probably wouldn't like us to do that, but also I can tell you that the greatest referral source that Algamus has, and I hope it will always be the greatest referral source that Algamus has, is the Fellowship of Gamblers Anonymous. Yes. Because John comes home from treatment, goes to his local Gamblers Anonymous meeting, sees somebody struggling, and goes over to Sam after the meeting and says, I had a really good experience at Algamus. You might want to give Rick Benson a call. Here's his number.
Yeah, and I've actually seen that happen in my local GA meeting. I've actually seen that happen, and I've talked to women who have voluntarily said, I went to Algamus and I had a really great experience. My most recent conversation, she's 14 months bet free, and that's been since your treatment program. So that's why I was really, really wanting to chat with you and get the word out there that there are programs, especially Algamus, that can help female gamblers or any gambler really who's struggling with compulsive gambling to get the help that they need. And, they can have a different life. It just starts with a choice.
One of the things that I'm hopeful that will happen, and I'm approaching full-time retirement here pretty shortly, but I now have a very professional, very development-oriented partner. And one of the missions that he will be carrying forward, probably starting by the end of this calendar year, is to see if we can't proliferate Algamus into at least a couple of different quadrants of the country. To have one in the Northeast, one in the Southeast. We already have one in the West and probably one in the Midwest. Because there is some reticence amongst that person in Massachusetts or New York or New Jersey. Oh, I don't want to go all the way to Arizona. And I'm like, really, it's only a 4.5 hour plane ride. I'm not asking you to go to Hawaii, although I sort of wish I were. I wish I had a treatment center in Maui.
Yeah.
That's all.
You probably get a lot of us would be like, okay, maybe that's not so long of a haul. What's funny is whenever I first started to try and find ways to start my recovery, I called the helpline. I just Googled it, compulsive gambling help, and my state's helpline came up. But, there's the phone number on the door when you walk in, the problem gambling phone number. But I don't think I've ever given it more than just like a second glance when I walked in. And that's really all there is. And I know that GA doesn't, they don't advertise either. And I understand all that because I do understand that there are a lot of people that do want to keep their anonymity. They don't want to be associated with this. And I guess that's the whole point of my podcast, is to break the stigma, to help people, but women in general, find the help that they need and know that they're not alone. Because when you talk to these gamblers, there's like 5 things that they all can agree on, right? That they felt alone. They didn't feel like anybody would ever understand. They alienated people, the lies, living the second life, trying to juggle all this. So there's so much commonality between us compulsive gamblers, but yet it's still such a stigmatized and separated recovery process. And
the disease of addiction is isolating.
Yes.
The gambling addiction is isolating. And the video poker machine isolates the woman even more. You hear these stories over and over again about the dissociative, almost fugue state that develops in front of one of these machines. And I'll tell you 2 stories related to that. Both of them go back some years. In Oregon, at least 15 years ago, they had these small video poker parlors, maybe 8 machines. And they were required by some statute to have some kind of food, so they served hot dogs and hamburgers and soda. I don't even know if they had liquor licenses. These 2 women are gambling side by side at 2 video poker machines in the middle of an armed robbery. There's guys in there with ski masks on, robbing the place. And the guys leave with the money, and the police come. And they tell the women they have to stop playing the machines because they have to interview them. The women don't particularly want to stop playing. And they say, describe what happened. And these women had no clue. They didn't know that the armed robbery was occurring.
Yeah, I can see that.
They're so disassociated and so fixated on the machine. The other story goes back to the mid-1990s in Las Vegas. I'm walking through a casino with my sponsor, who were there on business, providing expert defense witness testimony for a high-profile gambling addict in federal court. And to get out of our hotel room, we have to walk through the casino. And my sponsor is a real social extrovert, and we see this guy in a uniform, and my sponsor says to him, "Oh, what do you do here at the casino?" And he said, "I'm a seat changer." What's that mean? What's a seat changer? He said, "Well, we have," and I'm purposely not naming the casino, I'm sure it's true with all the casinos. He said, "We have 30% more seats than we have machines, because when they urine stain the seats, we just change them. They just manage it."
Wow. I never experienced that. I related more to the first story than that one, but that doesn't surprise me. I've seen people in the same chair hours on end.
I know people who purposely come to a casino self-catheterized. I've heard that story, because they won't leave that machine.
Yeah. And I've seen, I've walked by those people, and I'm like, why can't they just, why can't they just go home? But I didn't realize that was the road that I was heading, because I would see people and be like, man, they're always here. And the way I know that is because I'm always there, and I always see them.
I can't go home, because if I leave that machine even for 10 minutes to go to the bathroom, much less go home, the machine will hit while I'm gone.
Yep. Yeah. I've even experienced some of that same feeling myself, but not to the extent that I couldn't get up for a minute. But yeah, I've seen people that are very much, or they wear diapers, or
it depends.
Yeah. So that they don't have to get up. So it's just a really scary thing, this addiction, what it does to us, and how it changes the way we perceive how our lives should be. I don't think any of us would ever think that a couple of years of gambling would send us to wearing a diaper, sitting in front of a machine, but it happens. And hopefully we can just get some more awareness out there and get some help going out there. So I read something when I was doing some research before this podcast, and I pulled this quote off of something you said on an interview, and it said, "And so the very best that I could do early on was just show up." And I see that a lot and what I tell the women in my groups who are still gambling, but they're thinking about stopping every day, but they're still gambling. But they do show up to these groups and they do read the stories. And so whenever I read that, that would probably name a majority of the people that I see in the groups, that they're at the very best, they're just showing up, they're trying to read the stories, they're trying to get this started, but they just can't quite get a grip on it.
So let's dig into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And they can't get into that. They can't quite get a grip on it because they haven't felt enough consequences yet, because they're still in some level of denial about the severity of their addiction, because they have those comorbid trauma issues that we talked about earlier that they can't stop medicating away from, because they have a concurrent substance abuse issue. So once they smoke a few joints and they lower their inhibition, or have a few drinks and lower their inhibition, then they're back at the casino again. Okay, but wouldn't all of that be temporarily alleviated if they were in a residential treatment program? Every single one of those factors would be temporarily removed to give them a running start at the recovery process.
Yeah, and I like the thought of that, because a lot of the women I do see have like a dual substance abuse. Like, for instance, I was chatting with a woman this morning who relapsed because she just needed to have she wanted a couple of beers. And particularly where she lives, there are machines in the bars. So I asked her, I said, she was really beating herself up, that she had slipped. And so I asked her, I said, is it a drinking problem or is it a gambling problem? Like, we've been focusing on the gambling, not gambling, but maybe we should be focusing on the not drinking. Because if you're not drinking, then you're not gambling. And so there's always kind of, you get all different types, but that makes a lot of sense. And by being able to go somewhere and completely reset, then you can really figure out where the problem is coming from.
And if it is a dual problem, then we're treating it, even though we're a gambling specific program, our therapists, counselors have alcohol chemical dependency training that's significant. So we're treating all of that simultaneously.
Yeah. And I think I really think it would be, there are a lot of people that could benefit from just being able to just reset and get that good hold because this is such a struggle for the rest of our lives. I know for myself, I know people think that they can get it under control. I thought this at first, in my first attempt at recovery. I managed to stay out 55 days on my own, but I thought I would just do it completely on my own. I didn't want to bring anybody in. I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. And like I said, I made it 55 days until a particular payday. I was going through some things personally. I wasn't addressing the issues that I needed to be addressing that were sending me to the casino. So I knew after I spent a week, maybe 2 or 3 days trying to chase my losses and because I had this misconception that I could control it, because I stayed away from it for so long, that it should all be fine. And that just certainly wasn't the case. And I probably did some tremendous damage in just those few days, worse than probably any other time that I had previously. But when I came at it the second time, I knew that I had to do something different. I knew that I couldn't do it on my own. I knew that I had to have help. So, because this is going to be a lifelong battle, I will never be able to gamble ever again. I'll never be able to walk into a gambling casino or put myself in that situation ever again. I know that. But so to get the best start to this recovery, a program like yours would probably give anybody probably the best start on this recovery
journey. Wish that I had the financial wherewithal to be able to treat everybody for free.
Sure.
Although I'll qualify that. I think it's important that, to use a gambling term, I think it's important that people have some skin in the game. I think it's important that they make some kind of a contribution to the recovery process. But if a state wanted to contract with Algamus rather than opening their own residential treatment center, if they wanted to contract with Algamus, and I have done this with a couple of state councils in the past, and send anybody who they think needs residential treatment to Algamus, and the money flows through the state council on problem gambling, I would welcome that with any state council that wanted to do that. The problem is that it's not legal because most of the state councils are getting money from the state government, and the state government can't let the money go outside the state lines. It can't cross the state border. It has to stay within the state. And it's really not about establishing 50 different Algamuses.
Right.
One of the other issues that we're tackling, very sad issue to date, we're tackling it, but it's a very complex issue, is I don't know any facility in the country that I would highly recommend that accepts Medicare and treats gambling. We don't do it presently. And what that means is you come to me, you're 67 years old, you're Medicare enrolled woman. And even if you have a supplement, the supplement won't pay unless Medicare pays. And Medicare won't pay because we're not a Medicare licensed facility. So now I have to tell this 67-year-old that it's a self-pay situation that she can't afford, even if I try to scholarship as much as possible. For us, it's financially and administratively cumbersome to become a Medicare licensed facility, but we're probably going to do it. It just takes a lot of administrative work to get it done. We're working on it. And then, as far as I know, we'll be the first Medicare licensed facility in the country that treats gambling.
And it sounds like there's going to be a growing need for this, that there is a growing need for this. And so whenever we look at that, though, I know a lot of states, because I've actually come across people who our state has helped get to your program, but our state is funded a lot through the tribal casinos. So they have a little more flexibility when it comes to that. Okay, so to sum it up here and kind of bring it all back in, we're talking about women who, or men, I hate to be specific to women, but that's my passion, women who are struggling to get a hold of this addiction. It's destroying their lives. It's destroying their family. It could be taking them down a criminal path. Because I think, that's where a lot of compulsive gamblers end up going, is down a criminal path. So being able to do a treatment like yours, to be able to reset, even if it takes them away from their family for 30 days minimum, takes them away from their family, they have to understand that it's going to give them more, better time with their family when they get back. They're going to be more present, more mindful. They'll be able to tackle and cope with situations as they come, and they won't have to seek their addiction to be able to handle those situations. So
they're going to be more job focused and have higher quality job performance.
Yeah, and people in their lives will see. I mean, just from my recovery, that I've just the small steps I've taken in my recovery, people see a difference in you because you've changed so much during your addiction, and you've become this person that people don't even recognize anymore. So if you take the time, and that's one of the biggest things about recovery, is taking the time for yourself. Like, we're selfish when we're gambling. We're selfish because we're stuck in this compulsive, frame of mind, and we can't think of anything else but gambling. So I think when I say it's recovery, you need to be selfish, people kind of look at it like, well, I was selfish for so long. Well, you need to be selfish a little bit more, but this kind of selfish is going to help people instead of hurt the people. So I think if somebody's listening and they're still trying to justify taking the time out of their life and away from their family, wouldn't you say that would probably be the number one reason, is to be able to reset and be able to be back with their family, fully present, healthy, showing their family by example?
Yes. and you've created the best statistical opportunity to stay away from the bet one day at a time.
Absolutely. Because I know that first 30 days is the hardest. That's when we go through that emotional roller coaster. So if you're still battling all these day-to-day challenges that you're trying to run from and deal with the emotional roller coaster of that first 30 days, it can a lot of times set you up for failure, because you're battling so many demons at once. So to be able to reset is definitely a great idea. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, do you want to let us know?
You either reach us at www.algamus.org or .com, or call my cell number directly, 941-778-2496. That's 941-778-2496. Or if that's difficult to remember, call 888-ALGAMUS. That'll get to me as well. I'd be glad to be helpful in any way that I can. I really appreciate, Christina, the time with you today. Be glad to come back anytime you want me, and we'll talk about it some more. And I think that your mission in terms of providing information and education and support for female gamblers is tremendous. And I give you all compliment for so doing.
Thank you. I'm a real amateur at this, as you can tell. I was kind of a little nervous. I think I'll probably get more comfortable as things progress, but this is definitely a passion for me, and I'm not sure where all this energy to do this is coming from, but I'm just gonna let it lead me. So also, I just want to note that you guys have a great social media presence on Instagram. There's a lot of great, inspiring things that you guys put out, which is how I first found out about you. So I followed your Instagram account from day one. So I really appreciate you, and hopefully we can get some awareness out. So
I appreciate you too. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thanks so much.
Take care now.